I woke up one morning and realized my entire life was about to become a living nightmare because of a handful of hair on my pillow. And honestly, I just need to know if I'm the monster here, or if they finally got what was coming to them. Imagine being 17 years old, right in the peak of your high school years, and realizing that your body is betraying you in the most visible way possible. I'm talking about losing my hair before I even had my driver's license for a full year. I stood there in my bathroom looking at the thinning patches on my scalp and felt like my world was ending, but that was nothing compared to the absolute hell my classmates put me through once they noticed. Was I wrong for the way I finally chose to burn it all down? Or would you have done the exact same thing if you were pushed into a corner like I was? This isn't just a story about losing hair. It's a story about losing my mind, my dignity, and eventually my patience with people who thought my pain was their punchline. It all started during the fall of my junior year when I noticed more hair than usual in the shower drain, but I didn't think much of it because I was stressed with AP classes and soccer practice. But by November, the excuse wasn't cutting it anymore because my crown was becoming visibly thin, and every time I looked in the mirror, I saw a different person looking back at me. My parents took me to a specialist who told me it was a rare form of early-onset alopecia, likely triggered by a massive spike in cortisol and genetic predisposition, and basically, there wasn't much they could do to stop it quickly. I remember sitting in that sterile doctor's office feeling like I'd been handed a death sentence for my social life, and my mom was crying, which only made it feel more permanent and terrifying. I tried to hide it at first by wearing hoodies and beanies to school every single day, even when it was 80 degrees outside. But the school administration started giving me a hard time about the dress code. My principal, Mr. Henderson, actually pulled me aside and told me that hats are a distraction to the learning environment. And even after my mom sent in a medical note, the news of my condition leaked out through the front office staff's kids. The teasing didn't start as a roar. It started as a persistent low-grade fever of whispers and giggles whenever I walked down the hallway. It was the popular crowd, led by a guy named Tyler and his girlfriend Brianna, who really decided to make my life their personal project for the semester. Tyler was the star quarterback, the kind of guy who thinks the world owes him a favor just for existing, and he decided that my balding head was the funniest thing to happen to our town since the circus came to village. He started calling me Chrome Dome and Mr. Clean loudly enough for everyone to hear, and Brianna would just stand there filming his pranks for her TikTok followers while laughing behind her manicured hands. One day in the cafeteria, I was just trying to eat my lunch in peace when Tyler walked up behind me and swiped the beanie right off my head in front of the entire junior class. I felt the cold air hit my scalp and the immediate, deafening silence of 100 people staring at my patchy, thinning hair before the room erupted into laughter. I felt like I was naked, like my skin was being peeled back, and I just sat there frozen while Tyler tossed my hat into a trash can filled with leftover pasta sauce. I went home that day and shaved it all off because I couldn't stand the in-between look anymore, thinking that if I just leaned into the bald look, the bullying would stop, but it only got worse. Now I wasn't just the kid losing his hair. I was the freak, who looked like a middle-aged man in a teenager's body, and the insults became more creative and more cruel. They started leaving Rogaine bottles in my locker, and someone even created a fake Instagram account dedicated to posting photos of the back of my head with captions, comparing me to various movie villains. My grades started slipping. I quit the soccer team because I couldn't stand the locker room comments. And I spent most of my nights locked in my room wondering why the universe had picked me to be the target. My parents were worried sick, but every time they tried to intervene with the school, Mr. Henderson would just say that kids will be kids, and that I needed to develop thicker skin to survive the real world. It reached a breaking point during the winter formal, which I hadn't even planned on going to until a girl I'd had a crush on for years, Sarah, asked me to go with her. I thought maybe, just maybe, things were turning around, and that someone finally saw me for who I was instead of what I looked like on top. I spent a week's wages from my part-time job on a nice suit, and I actually felt confident for the first time in months when I walked into that gym with Sarah on my arm. But it was all a setup orchestrated by Tyler and Brianna, who had dared Sarah to ask me out just so they could humiliate me on a bigger stage. Right in the middle of a slow song, Tyler accidentally tripped while holding a cup of sticky, bright red punch, drenching me from head to toe, while Brianna shouted that I looked like a bloody cue ball. Sarah didn't even look guilty. She just walked away to join them, laughing about how she couldn't believe I actually thought she'd like someone who looked like an egg. I stood there in the middle of the dance floor, dripping with punch, listening to the laughter of people I'd known since kindergarten, and something inside of me just snapped. The sadness was gone, replaced by a cold, hard, vibrating rage. I didn't yell, I didn't cry, and I didn't even wipe the punch off my face. I just turned around and walked out of the school, knowing exactly what I was going to do next. You see, Tyler wasn't just a bully. He was also a huge cheater who relied on his entourage to do his homework, and Brianna's perfect life was built on a foundation of lies and stolen credit cards. I spent the next 3 weeks playing the part of the broken victim, letting them think they'd finally crushed my spirit, while I quietly gathered every bit of evidence I needed to ruin their lives. I found out that Tyler had been using a specific app to pay a college student to write all of his essays and take his online exams, which was a massive violation of the school's integrity policy that could get him expelled and lose him his scholarship. As for Brianna, I discovered she had been stealing clothes from a local boutique where I worked part-time, and I had the security footage to prove she was the one stuffing expensive dresses into her bag during her shopping sprees. So that is the situation I found myself in, humiliated, betrayed, and holding the keys to their destruction in my hands. I had everything I needed to make sure they never stepped foot in that school again, but I knew the fallout would be permanent. Before I tell you how the final confrontation went down and the chaos that followed, I want you to pause and really think about this. If you had been treated like a subhuman joke for months by people who thought they were untouchable, would you have turned the other cheek, or would you have burned their world to the ground like I did? Drop a comment right now and tell me if I'm the villain for seeking revenge, or if this was just karma catching up to them, because I really want to know what you would have done in my shoes. The Monday after I finished gathering my arsenal, I didn't go to the principal. I knew Henderson would just protect his star quarterback to keep the school's sports ranking up. Instead, I went directly to the school board and the local police department with the evidence of Brianna's thefts and Tyler's academic fraud. But I didn't stop there because I wanted the public humiliation to match what they put me through. So I waited until the big Pep Rally before the state championships. The entire school was packed into the bleachers, and the atmosphere was electric as Tyler stood in the center of the gym, basking in the glory of being the hero of the town. I had spent the previous night hacking into the AV system, a skill I'd picked up because I had nothing better to do while hiding in my room, and I waited for the perfect moment. Just as Tyler took the microphone to give a speech about hard work and integrity, the massive projector screens behind him flickered to life, showing the security footage of Brianna stealing and screenshots of Tyler's messages negotiating prices for his cheated essays. The silence that fell over that gym was even heavier than the silence in the cafeteria months prior. But this time, the eyes weren't on me. They were on the two royals, who were suddenly being exposed as frauds and criminals. Brianna started screaming and trying to run out, but the school resource officer was already waiting at the exit because I'd made sure the police knew exactly where she'd be. Tyler just stood there, his face turning a shade of white that made my bald head look tan by comparison, as he realized his athletic scholarship to a D1 school was evaporating in real time. Mr. Henderson tried to shut the feed down, but I'd looped it and locked the controls, so for 10 straight minutes, the entire school watched the evidence of their idols being absolute garbage human beings. In the weeks that followed, Tyler was stripped of his captaincy, expelled from the school, and his college offer was rescinded within 48 hours of the news hitting the local papers. Brianna was charged with felony shoplifting because the amount she'd stolen over several months exceeded the grand larceny threshold. And she ended up having to do community service, and was banned from ever entering that boutique again. The fallout was massive. Sarah was ostracized by the rest of the student body for being a snake, and even Mr. Henderson ended up being investigated for his negligence in handling the bullying and the academic fraud. As for me, I didn't suddenly become the most popular kid in school, but the teasing stopped instantly because everyone saw that the bald kid wasn't someone you could push around without consequences. I eventually got a scalp micropigmentation treatment that made me feel more like myself, but honestly, the confidence I gained didn't come from the procedure. It came from standing up for myself when no one else would. Looking back, I don't regret a single thing I did because bullies only understand one language, And that's the language of being held accountable for their actions. It's a hard lesson to learn that the people who seem to have everything are often the ones with the most to lose. And sometimes, you have to be the one to pull the thread that unravels their whole act. I'm starting college in a few months in a completely different state where no one knows me as the Chrome Dome, or the kid who took down the football team. And I'm finally looking forward to the future. I hope this story serves as a reminder to anyone out there going through something similar that your physical appearance doesn't define your worth, and the people who try to make you feel small are usually the smallest people of all. You have more power than you think, even when it feels like the whole world is laughing at you. If you think I did the right thing by exposing them, or if you think I went a little too far with the public reveal, let me know your thoughts down below. Like this video if you were on my side and think Tyler and Brianna got exactly what they deserved for being such monsters. Make sure to subscribe for more stories like this one where the underdog finally gets their day. And share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section because I'll be reading them. Thanks for listening to my story, and I'll see you all in the next one.